Everyone, we welcome you to the launch of Phase 2 of the Jeff SGP UNDP Knowledge Fair and the UWI Open Campus Country Conference 2020-2021. We are having this event via the online platform in light of restrictions imposed due to the COVID pandemic. My name is Ember Charles. I am the chairperson of the Jeff SGP UNDP National Steering Committee for St. Lucia, and I will be taking you through the proceedings this morning. We particularly welcome all the members of the media. And let me start by acknowledging our partners, Ms. Leslie Crane, who is the acting head of UE Open Campus St. Lucia, Mr. Richard Matthias, who is the president of the Ayanola Apiculture Collective, IAC, Ms. Kanita Melius, Acting National Coordinator, Caribbean Youth Environmental Network, CYN, Mr. Jevanik Henry, CYN, Ms. Snala Maha, the Project Coordinator of the Knowledge Fair, also Mr. Giles Romulus, who's the National Coordinator for the Jeff SGP UNDP project in St. Lucia. First, let me invite Leslie Crane to deliver some remarks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Charles. And good morning to everyone. And thank you so much for the opportunity to present some information to you this morning on our upcoming UWIOC St. Lucia Virtual Country Conference. Our conference takes place under the broader umbrella of the Jeff SGP UNDP Knowledge Fair. And I take this opportunity to thank the National Coordinator of the Jeff, Mr. Giles Romulus, for partnering with us. Given the theme of our conference, Visioning Sustainable Futures and Confronting the Threats of Climate Change and Climate Variability, the partnership was a logical one. And we share a common goal, that of seeking solutions to the existential threat that climate change is to our collective futures. And so just to provide just a very brief background in terms of the country conference, this is the fourth such conference that is going to be held in St. Lucia. And it is a conference that is held across all of the 17 islands served by the UWI Open Campus. And the aim of the conference is, of course, to promote or to provide an avenue to share existing research. And the research that we are concerned with at this conference is research done specifically on St. Lucia as it relates to climate change and climate variability. So what we have tried to do, along with our partners, is to try to put together what we hope you will agree is an exciting array of presentations that address a wide cross-section of issues related to climate change. Our conference takes place over a 3-day period. We begin with an opening, which takes place on the 15th, that's Monday the 15th, and it's an evening activity. It takes place from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. And at that opening, we essentially will be creating the framework for the next 2 days, where we will listen to the presentations. The highlights of the evening really will be the keynote address. The keynote speaker, we are very happy to say, is Dr. James Fletcher. Dr. James Fletcher, I believe, is well known to all of us, former Minister of the Public Service, and of course, one of the main areas also in terms of his ministry was the area of sustainable development, energy, science, and technology. So he is the ideal person to speak to the theme. So we look forward to a wonderful keynote address from Dr. Fletcher at Monday's opening ceremony. And then for the next 2 days, that is the 16th and the 17th of February, We will have 12, and I believe now, because one more person is on board, so probably a total of 13 presentations over the course of 2 days. And each day, those presentations will be on from 9 o'clock in the morning right through to 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We have a wonderful lineup of both local presenters as well as presenters from overseas. And again, what they all have in common, however, is that the research that they will be presenting to you is research that is on St. Lucia, and of course speaks to the theme of climate change. Just very briefly, if I may, we have to mention some of our participants and just to touch on a couple of themes. So for example, we will be looking at themes ranging from looking at climate change and its impact on fisheries. We look at the various policies in St. Lucia and how those are developing over time to address the whole issue of climate change. We have participations from OECS, quite a number of persons. We have 3 persons who are going to be taking part from the OECS Commission right here in St. Lucia, and we look forward to all of their presentations. We have from our Ministries of Health, Forestry Department, we have from the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College, so a broad cross-section of persons. And of course, we look forward to a presentation coming from the IAC collaboration, which is basically going to be talking about climate change and neotropical pollinators. So again, all linked up in with our partners, the GEF, the IAC, and of course the UWI. So we encourage everybody to take part, and in order to do so, we ask that you join us via our various platforms, and I will just to name 2 right now. You can join us via our Facebook page, UWI Open Campus Caribbean, or you could also join in via YouTube, www.open.uwi.edu/live-stream. There is an opportunity after each presentation, which is going to be for 20 minutes. There is an opportunity afterwards for interaction with the public, a question and answer period. And therefore, we really hope that it's going to be a very interactive session. And I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Leslie. And my apologies, I think we would have firstly had to invite Snalia to open with some prayer. It's never too late to have invocations. So we'll do it now. And soon thereafter, I would invite the 2 members of CYN, Mr. Henry and Ms. Melius, to speak following Snalia. And then we'll continue the agenda. Snalia, over to you.
Good morning, everybody. Well, good morning once again. I would just like to offer some prayers. Those of you who sang, you could go ahead and sign yourselves. Heavenly Father, we come to you this morning, thanking you for the opportunity to be here. We're all in good health. We are all safe. And we thank you that we've gotten to the second phase of the GEF Knowledge Fair 2020-2021. And we ask that you guide these proceedings. We ask that the activities planned for this upcoming week are fruitful and are well accepted by the general public. And that is something that St. Lucia and the wider region can build on. We ask you to protect all of us as we all go through this COVID-19 pandemic, and that we ask that you continue giving us the strength, the wisdom, and the courage to continue the work that is being done by the GEF SGP in St. Lucia, and also by all our partners, including the UE and the IAC, and of course, as the implementing partners, CYEN, a group of young persons trying their best to keep positive and to stay focused in St. Lucia. We ask that you continue to help us and protect us in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you. Amen. Jevanik, could you present your remarks, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Charles. Once again, good morning, well, or rather good day to everyone joining us from whatever part of the world you are to this virtual press conference for the Jeff SGP UNDP Knowledge Fair, and of course the UE Open Campus St. Lucia Country Conference Phase 2. Certainly a warm welcome to all the project partners, as previously mentioned, the media as well, and for again, everybody joining us via social media. Fortunately, just a brief remarks, in November last year, when we were able to kick off the Knowledge Fair with the People's Parliament and the Beekeepers Congress. But certainly, I think COVID has led to some minor changes as to our mode of operations in this phase. But definitely, interestingly, as we seek to push research and innovation during this Knowledge Fair, we have had to innovate, and hence why we are here with this virtual launch and subsequent activities for next week, which of course Mrs. Michelle has spoken about, and definitely Mr. Matthias will speak about what I dub the sweet component of the Knowledge Fair, that is the National Honey Show Training Workshop set for next week. Definitely from our end as the Caribbean Youth Environment Network, St. Lucian chapter, where we view young people as an important and critical development resource, we are indeed pleased, to be on board such an initiative, which is tied to our mandate of improving the overall quality of life of Caribbean young people by facilitating their personal development and, their full involvement in all matters pertaining to the environment and sustainable development. And of course, you know CYEN has been so well involved within the climate change and sustainable development space. So definitely, it was a great fit for CYEN to really and truly ensure that the young people are involved in such a critical initiative for our country and for the region. So once again, a warm welcome to everyone, and we do hope everyone here in St. Lucia, across the region and around the world can get involved in this phase of the Knowledge Fair amidst all the chaos globally. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jevanik, and let me invite Richard. Richard, who has done wonders in terms of introducing St. Lucians to the variety and the sweetness of honey. Most people didn't realize honey had flavors. So Richard, I invite you now to present your remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Charles, and my fellow colleagues at this press conference and members of the press. I would like to extend a special thanks to the team at Jeff SGP St. Lucia, especially Mr. Jairo Romulus. They have been fundamental in support of apiculture in St. Lucia over the last few years. I'd like to speak a special thanks to CYNE for their support. It's very important that the youth get involved in apiculture. The average age of most of our beekeepers in the St. Lucian around the Caribbean are in their late 50s, going on 60s. So for the continuity of the industry, it's very important that we start to incorporate young people into this very vital sector that supports biodiversity throughout the Caribbean. This second phase of the Knowledge Fair is especially important to us as Caribbean beekeepers, because we are now going into the workshop phase of the National Honey Show, which will hopefully will be launched in December of 2021 of this year. Bar COVID or no COVID, we will launch and we will make the honey show happen one way or the other. We have some significant partners on board with this project. As you know already, Jeff SGP, Export St. Lucia, ECA, Association of Caribbean Beekeepers, and of course, the Ionola Apiculture Collective. So with all these bodies in place, we will definitely pull off a fantastic honey show in December as planned. For next week's seminar, we have three very, 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 very special persons that will be leading leading the proceedings in this regards. First, we have Jennifer Holmes. She's based in Florida. She's president of the Florida Beekeeping Association and is also a certified IFAS judge, as well as being a master beekeeper. And we have Mrs. Carla Essen, who is also a IFAS certified honey judge, who will be supporting us on day 2, giving us some of her insight. And thirdly, we'll have Mr. Gladstone Solomon of Trinidad and Tobago. He's probably one of the grandfathers of beekeeping in the Caribbean, past president of the Association of Caribbean Beekeeping Organizations. And one of his most unique traits is also a lifetime member of the National Honey Show Limited in London. So this is probably one of the biggest honey shows in the world. And Gladstone, through his work with the Trinidad and Tobago beekeepers from 1989 to 2005, has led several forays into the UK and has come back to the Caribbean with many medals and prizes for competing in the international honey show. So if we can formulate our own Caribbean honey show, I believe in St. Lucia, and start the genesis here and really create a really good show, I think in the short to midterm, we should be able to make that a regional event, and we would have beekeepers from all over the region submitting their honey, having a real great tourism product here in St. Lucia. We can have different persons from all over the Caribbean come in to compete, to show their honey, to show the different elements of the program. So I think this is something that we can build on in the future. With or without COVID, we'll find a way to make it work. And I really want to appreciate these persons, Jennifer, Carla, and Gladstone, providing their time free of charge to help train beekeepers in St. Lucia and the Caribbean and the Greater Caribbean, because this is being done by a Zoom, so everybody be able to participate throughout the region, not just St. Lucia beekeepers, to take advantage of this opportunity afforded to us by Jeff SGP. So that's it from me. Thank you very much for your time. And once again, let's keep the young people, get them involved in apiculture. Apiculture is the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Richard, for these remarks. And we look forward to the workshop and, of course, the honey tasting in December. I guess the longer the honey stays, probably get a bit sweeter. It's left to me now just to present some remarks on behalf of Jeff SGP UNDP St. Lucia, who is the main organizer and providing significant resources for the knowledge fair. This knowledge fair that we're launching today actually is the second part. The first part, as I think Javanik mentioned earlier, we had it sometime last year, which was the People's Parliament. And that was a platform for advocacy on a number of issues which the Jeff SGP program is working on. Essentially, what the knowledge fair is really a forum for learning and exchange of ideas. What we do, we attempt to try to present all of the outcomes and experiences of participants in our projects, and then to share the outcomes and the lessons learned from the projects with the public. So the 4 key components of the knowledge fair really are the learning and the sharing of ideas. Secondly, it serves as a market for the sale of the products of the grantees. And it helps essentially to showcase their work. So really, it provides them with some means of marketing themselves and the expertise as well. And fourthly, it is really a sort of platform and a vehicle for empowerment of the poor and marginalized. To give them that framework, that context in which to build expertise so that they could really help themselves and develop their own communities. The 2020-2021 Knowledge Fair really has 4 key components. The People's Parliament we already had, and the second component would be the UE Open Campus Conference which we'll be having next week, and I think which Leslie has ably spoken about earlier in her remarks, where it's really the framework for ideation, for the sharing of research, for the stimulation of discussion, and also for the sharing of experiences of different researchers, either solutions, working on solution situations, or others working on specific areas of research on St. Lucia. The third part of the knowledge fair is what we call beacons, in search of beacons of change. This is an idea which is really still in its, as we would say, in its formation, but the key outcome would be preparing a group of people to take a journey around St. Lucia to experience these projects, and we'll be documenting that and in the end producing some audiovisual products of significant quality and appeal to share with people around the world. As you know, right now, our platforms for exchange of information are essentially limitless. So that will be the third component. The fourth component, which Richard spoke of, is the tasting, the honey tasting, which of course will bring a very sweet end to our Knowledge Fair 2020-2021. I need to know that, just to put it in context, the first Knowledge Fair, which was held in 2018, was in fact a physical fair where we brought people together, we brought grantees together, we brought agencies which will work with grantees together to present this, all of their projects in a physical way in the city of Castries. The idea was to have repeated this every 2 years, but because of the advent of the COVID pandemic, that became impossible. So we really are highly unlikely to have a physical knowledge fair this year. But like most of the things that are happening in this time, it would be virtual. And though it's no longer a gathering of people, but the knowledge sharing is perhaps a bit more critical and even more focused as we're able to sort of segment the knowledge fair into these parts, into discrete components, and share that with you throughout the course of the year, ending on 13th December or thereabout, 2021. And as Richard said, we hope that nothing barring our plans, that there will be the opportunity for St. Lucians and non-St. Lucians who are visiting to come in and taste the best of the variety of honey flavors in St. Lucia. But for now, our focus would be on the next week's activity, which is the UE Open Campus Conference, which is funded by Jeff SGP UNDP. And this will be starting off with the formal launch of that conference, the opening session actually, on Monday the 15th from 7 p.m. And it will continue the following days with sessions starting at 9 and going until 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And we have a variety of presenters on a range of topics related to our theme. So these are essentially the sort of framework and context in which we are doing this launch today. And we will invite the participants and the media who may have some questions to field these questions to us so we could respond to them. But before we go to the question and answer period, let me invite Kanita to deliver some vote of thanks, remarks of thanks to the partners and others who have been participating in this project thus far.
Good day, everybody. So I'd just like to say thank you to you, Mr. Charles, for chairing the proceedings for today's launch. Ms. Mahal, I'd like to thank you for inviting God into our midst. And to Mr. Giovanni Henry, thank you for the welcoming remarks. To our key speakers, Mr. Richard Mathias, the president of the Ionola Apiculture Collective, Mrs. Leslie Crane Mitchell, the acting head of University of the West Indies Open Campus, and to you, Mr. Charles, the chair of the National Steering Committee. Thank you for giving us some insight into what we have coming up next week. And I'd also like to thank Jeff SGP UNDP, represented by Mr. Giles Romulus, the national coordinator, And I'd also like to say thank you to the media for your coverage in promoting this event and for your presence here, because you are a key component in allowing us to reach our goal in reaching our target audience for this event. So I'd like to thank you everybody for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Kanita. And I would like to invite the members of the media who have joined us, if they have any questions, to ask any of our participating agencies. You may just unmute and ask your questions, or if you feel inclined, you could put it in the chat room. I think the SNEL will be monitoring the chat. While we're waiting, you could interrupt anytime. I would like to invite Mr. Romulus. Mr. Romulus, you there with us?
Yes, I'm here listening quietly.
Listening quietly. I just wanted you to speak briefly on the theme of our knowledge fair. What's behind our theme this year?
Okay, thank you, Embert. We are in trying times, I must say. We are faced by a lot of issues with global ramifications like climate change and the COVID, the coronavirus, the pandemic. In addition to those global problems, we have problems in biodiversity. We have extinction rates increasing significantly over time. We have pollution of waters, of our waterways, our coastal zone, international waters. Increasingly, the oceans are becoming more and more polluted. In fact, the impact of human beings on the biosphere is becoming more and more telling, and that in effect is going to affect our quality of living in the future. And that's precisely why geologists and geographers and so on have named the period the Anthropocene Epoch. And what that means is this epoch is a period in which human beings who appeared on the earth at somewhere around 3 minutes to midnight on the geological scale have done significant changes to the environment. And it appears that we are the only species that seem to be committing suicide slowly. And we do that by the negative impacts on the environment, the fact that we refuse to learn that our actions have direct, indirect, and prolonged effects on the environment. In fact, as we put more pollution into the environment, the synergistic impacts of those effects can come back to haunt us. We see it in cancer rates, we see it in the quality of our food, we see it in the issues concerning enteric diseases in polluted waters around the world, in Africa, in Haiti, parts of the Caribbean. Our future is becoming less and less sustainable. Hence the topic, sustainable futures. How do we reverse that? How do we come together as human beings living on one rock, and I call it one rock in the context of the universe. Earth is just one rock, and one rock that is so small relative to the sun or so small relative to Jupiter that it is almost insignificant. How do we take care of this rock that we have swirling through the universe? How do we ensure that our children in the future are going to be living healthy lives or not with distorted brains and demented neurological problems? So this is essentially, we're talking sustainable futures, but compounding and even making these futures more difficult for us are the issues associated with climate change. Climate change will do a number of things. In fact, if you just take a simple experiment in a chemistry laboratory, when temperature increases, the rates of reaction of chemical reactions increases. And that happens in the biosphere itself. Temperatures are increasing slowly, but we have animals and we have species whose temperature tolerance range are so small that it's beginning to affect them, and that includes viruses. And that is why people like Bill Gates are saying, hey, coronavirus, first pandemic, there are others to come. And from our standpoint, we believe there are others to come. And we better get ready, and we better start to develop our immunity and our resilience, or else, as we see in our local language, Kwapo will smoke our pipes. So there's the climate change that is caused by GHG gases, greenhouse gases, but there's also climate variability caused by usual geological cycles and so on. And they're coming together to compound the effects on our biosphere. So we really, in many respects, are the species causing the greatest destruction to the biosphere, the greatest negative impact on the environment. And it is time that we begin to put the mirror to our faces and really take action. And here is the focus, the theme, the underlying theme of this knowledge fair. And we must always forget in small island developing states, the impacts of environmental destruction, the dystopia becomes magnified in small island ecosystems. I always say, when the Americans had the Great Dust Bowl in the middle of the last century, they could have moved to New York and they could have moved to Utah and they could have moved to New Mexico. However, when we have it in St. Lucia, I want to know where we're going to move. Maybe Red Island? I don't know. But this is the reality. One hurricane covers the whole of St. Lucia. One hurricane covers a little part of Florida. Everybody can move north and so on. So it is time that we become, one, realize those impacts are happening. Two, realize we must do something in our country to avert negative impacts. Three, become strident lobbyists and advocates to change internationally. And four, begin to believe in ourselves that we can do creative things in our country. In fact, we can develop that cultural confidence that Mia Motley speaks about, that Ralph Gonzalez speaks about, that many of our historians speaks about. So in a nutshell, we want to bring to the attention of St. Lucia's that if we are going to have a sustainable future, we need to act now. And in so doing, we have a number of projects that are becoming beacons of hope. And they are not occurring in the capital of Castries, they're occurring in rural St. Lucia. And in so doing, we're going to bring it to the attention of St. Lucians by the projects we do in apiculture, by those we do in pollution abatement, by those we do in smart agriculture and so on. So here you are, Mr. Charles, sustainable futures. It is no longer an option. It is a critical necessity for the future of humankind and our small rock. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Willis. And the way you spoke, it seems that the future is now, because the stark picture you painted about what is happening and what is possible and some of the limitations we have as small island developing states. We have to be, we're putting things in place for those who could come after, but we have to protect ourselves, because if we're not around, we can't put things in place for the future. A bit of a tongue twister, but I think this is what is facing us right now. Again, I want to send out an appeal to those who are joining us from the participants or the media who may have any questions. They could just interrupt at any time. And while we are waiting, I would probably want to go back to a couple of our partners to speak a bit about their own work, and maybe ask Richard to just, I know Richard is quite able and he's willing to share information, but the challenges that in light of climate change, as well as in light of the COVID pandemic, what are the challenges being faced by your own community of beekeepers and beekeepers affiliate organizations in both keeping the beekeeping industry alive as well as keeping their livelihoods going?
Yeah, great point, Mr. Charles. I think one of the things that we've learned from COVID is how COVID resilient the apiculture sector is. We have found, people have a little more, most of our beekeepers are part-time beekeepers and not full-time beekeepers like myself. So it's given them a little more time to go into the field, give their bees some more attention, and to last year to produce, a little extra harvest, or to have that extra focus to produce a little extra harvest, to provide the general public with their little supplies of honey to help boost their immune system in this time where it's most important. So I think during this pandemic, we have been very buoyant. The INO Apiculture Collective has been very buoyant, especially through the assistance of Jeff SGP. We did a number of workshops, both virtually and physically, prior to we've got to this, obviously this critical state. We did a number of workshops where we distributed queens to members of different organizations throughout the country to help beekeepers increase their capacity and in turn increase their production. So it's been an interesting year, but it's also showing that when the time comes, agriculture can step up to the plate and help to feed the nation. And I think it's very critical as a farmer, someone deals with livestock, that we recognize we need to build some certain level of resilience within ourselves. And we need to be able to feed ourselves to a certain extent. We can't just be dependent on imports from North America, Europe, and New Zealand, and wherever else in the world we buy our food products from. We need to build in that resilience for ourselves. We may need to go back to the times where everybody has a couple of chickens in their backyard. When they pull their fresh eggs in the morning, and they make their breakfast, and you got your green fig there for the afternoon to make your supper in the evening, and you're planting, and you just go and maybe trade a chicken, or you trade a few eggs and you get your fish to go with it. But we need to try to build that resilience and build that camaraderie back within our society. I've traded many bottles of honey for something I wanted. So, I mean, it's we have to have that level of participation, that level of camaraderie, that level of citizenship. We're all one people in the Caribbean, and we need to work together. And we also need to pass on these traits to the younger generation. A lot of these things that we've forgotten how to plant a banana tree. We've forgotten how to plant our dasheen and all these different hard foods that we depend on. You think you go to the local restaurant and that's it, but somebody actually produced that in a farm somewhere in St. Lucia and brought it to your table. So we really need to bring that connection back and make agriculture, one of the epicenters of our educational system. You got your maths, your English, your technical fields, but agriculture needs to be a key component in the development of our society. We can't leave a nation that can't feed itself is not a nation. Right. So, and I would just like to draw people back if they want to register for the event. Go to our webpage, inola-apiculturecollective.org, or you can go to our Facebook page, Inola Apiculture Collective, and you can register there, find a link there, and you can register there for the program. But agriculture is the key, people. You gotta feed yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Richard. I think you gave me a good point on which to segue to CYN, because you spoke about young people and so forth. But before that, I have a few things I'm sure you want to trade with me, because I need some honey.
Sure, definitely. We could work a deal.
Yeah,
let's do a deal.
We'll do a deal. But Jevanik, I wanted to find what is the young people's response now? What is CYN doing as a sort of coordinating group of young people involved in environment? Are young people getting into agriculture? Are young people helping their parents in their backyards, helping to feed us? What is the CYN doing in terms of encouraging young people to respond?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Charles. And just speaking up from where Mr. Matthias left off, I think definitely we're at the stage whereby as young people recognize that there is a need for greater involvement, whether it be apiculture and agriculture, because now the issues are now directly affecting our daily lives. And it's sad to say that I think we had to get to that stage whereby as young people, we see how it affects, the food security issues. And now that we have an interest, and oftentimes, even within CYN, you get the question of how did they get engaged? And I think that is where as CYN, we have a critical role to play. May I also add that we are a regional organization based from as far as Belize in the west to Suriname down in the south. So we have this sort of regional presence where we engage young people in beyond just, the basic climate change matters, but all matters regarding sustainable development, whether it be water resource management, agriculture, etc. So within the CYN space, we provide that platform for young people to more or less get involved in the sustainable development, issues which we face. Of course, it may be different if you look at maybe St. Lucia compared to maybe if you compare to maybe Guyana, who is very land-based. There are various issues, but of course, as young people, we have a critical role to play. And within the CYEN space, we try to afford that opportunity for young people to contribute to the solution process. And even beyond that, our involvement goes beyond just engaging young people, but we are keen on partnerships, which is one of the reasons why we are involved in this. We, of course, as a youth organization, we have limited resources, etc. But we are keen on building partnerships that will allow us to amplify our actions. And I mean, these are things which we've done not only at the local level, the regional, and even on the international level, going back to COP a few years ago. That is a conference of the parties whereby we had this agreement with the solar head of state to ensure that they push renewable energy education, within our member states. So we have this presence across board, a growing presence internationally as well. And I think through this project as well, we really want to push young people to see that you have a role to play within the solution process. It's not just about looking at the issues, but how can we contribute to the solutions? After all, within the whole context of climate change, we all know that we stand to be, I guess, the demographic that is most highly affected, and we are going to have to deal with it. So now is the opportune time to look at the various sectors where we can push sustainability, whether it be agriculture, fisheries, forestry, whatever it be, and get involved. And of course, CYEN is more than keen and pleased to be being the leading, the leading youth-led entity pushing such endeavors across the region.
Thanks, but I'm taking the role of the press there now because they're not speaking as yet. So I'm going to ask you a follow-up question. And perhaps any of the members of CYN could answer the question. I know that you have done a successful job in advocacy. We can go back to the 1.5 to Stay Alive campaign and so forth, your critical role there. But if myself, as someone who is trying to search for an example of where you have a probably specifically youth-led project in responding to any of the wide range of issues confronting us now, the environmental or sustainable development issues. I mean, is there one or a couple that you could mention that we can use as a learning lesson for us and other young people? Anybody, any of you could answer? I said I don't want to put you on the spot, but
yeah, it's fine. Yeah. I mean, I can start off, and I guess my colleagues can continue from there. So one which I had mentioned, which this partnership which we signed back in COP23 was with Solar Heads of State, where essentially this partnership was to promote education on renewable energy across the region. So, for example, in various countries like in St. Lucia, assisted in terms of the transitioning the government house into renewable energy, so dependent on solar energy. So this was a project that was also implemented in Jamaica and Guyana, where we sought to push that sort of renewable energy component of it. So that was one, again, building on partnerships, since we understand that we couldn't do it alone, but we had to use that sort of approach to it. I could go on, but I don't know if any of my colleagues would want to add a few more recent examples. Of course, we are integrally involved in terms of the International Coastal Cleanup activities, which is normally carried here every year during September, where not only that we raise awareness, but we actually engage in activities whereby providing that sort of space for young people to contribute towards the cleaning of our oceans, understanding the issues, and being able to contribute to, alleviating some of our, issues of pollution, etc. in Ireland. And again, it's occurring across the region as well. So that definitely the ICC is something which CYEN is actually leading across the region. That is the International Coastal Cleanup activity. Yeah, I think I can stop here for now.
Yeah, any of your colleagues can chip in? Nadia?
To add to
okay.
Sorry,
Go ahead, Kalita.
Kalita, go ahead.
To add to what Giovanni said, we also do Earth Hour, which is held on the third Saturday in March every year. It's to reduce the carbon footprint by turning off electricity for 1 hour. We do that every year. Recently, last year, there was also mock COP26, which was held by youth around the world, since there was no COP happening last year. And it was basically a 3-day session where the youth around the world basically had a COP per se for themselves and drafted a document which had to be forwarded to the governments and to the public/private sector in order to push out our ideas as to what we think should be done when it comes to sustainability. That is they're still tying up and finishing up the final draft, if I recall correctly. But that's some of the stuff which CYN members also have the ability to access and undertake to let their voices be known and speak for youth within the age group, and also their co-workers, give their point of view as youth in that regard. I guess I can hand over to Snalia now.
Okay, so I can speak to, especially from our engagement with Jeff, which was started 8 years ago. I believe prior to that, we were taking part in international coastal cleanup with our and other activities, but taking on major projects with international funding, I would think that actually commenced in 2013 with the Jeff SGP support. And that was with a project that targeted marginalized young persons aged 8 to 15 in the north and south of St. Lucia. And it focused on educating them, sensitizing them, giving them hands-on information, giving them, having them participate in activities which gave them a better appreciation for the environment. And it looked at bringing ideas that they may have learned at school, but probably, when you learn something at school, you hear it in the class, but there is no practical application. So these students were able to get that practical application on themes such as climate change, energy efficiency, solid waste management, and appreciation for biodiversity. They were able to do tree planting activities. They were able to hike to the rainforest. They were able to view for themselves what pollution, the impact of pollution has on our island. Most recently, there was a video circulating on social media in the Guadwash area where there's this whole collection of plastic. And you would imagine that 8 years ago, we did a tree planting exercise in that area, and the plastic issue was already there. And from the video that was circulated, it looks even worse now. So we have a problem, and we need to address it in the country. CYN, going from the mention about the plastic waste problem, apart from the international coastal cleanup, CYN is partnering with Unite Caribbean through the pilot plastic recycling project, Replast OECS, which is focusing on the collection of plastic beverage containers for recycling. That is one. CYN also encourages its members and other young persons to take opportunities for personal and professional development. A number of our members have had opportunity to represent St. Lucia, to represent the region, and to also represent, be the voice for young persons in St. Lucia and in the region. CYN sits on the St. Lucia National Conservation Fund Board. We sit on the National Climate Change Steering Committee. We sit on the Sustainable Development Goals National Coordinating Committee. So there is an avenue for young persons to build themselves, to have that space to learn and to contribute to the overall development of St. Lucia. So these are some of the things that I can highlight in terms of what CYN has been doing and the opportunities that exist for young persons to further contribute to the development of the country and the region.
Thank you, Nadia. I think we are approaching an hour. So before I wrap up, I just want to invite Leslie. You want to issue any reminders, any final words from you?
Yes, certainly. Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Charles. Just to remind everyone that the UWI, the Jeff SGP UNDP Knowledge Fair and the UWI Open Campus Country Conference 2021 gets off to a start next Monday, that we are starting with our opening ceremony, and the next 2 days following, the 16th and the 17th, we have a wonderful range of presentations for you. And I think perhaps what I can ask you to do is to encourage you to go onto our Facebook page, UWI Open Campus St. Lucia, where we are constantly trying to update information, provide information on our conference, provide information on what's going on with our partners as well. And there you will be able to see the schedule, and which will have specifics with regard to the time that each presenter is coming on, who the presenters are. We've also been putting on information in terms of giving you a little background on each of our presenters, just to build the excitement, and of course to allow people the opportunity to choose which presentations they wish to view. Not all of us have time to spend an entire day, but if you go to the Open Campus Facebook page and to all our partner pages, there you'll be able to see the schedule and be able to choose those presentations which appeal most to you. And we're just inviting everyone to come out and to participate actively during the Q&A session. And reminding you once more that if you, to join us, you need to look us up on facebook.com, UWI Open Campus Caribbean, and also you can join in via www.open.uwi.edu/live stream. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. Nadia, any information as project coordinator that you want to share before we close?
Okay, so we did not have any questions from the media, but some of them did contact us prior to, they were unable to make it. However, the recording will be provided to them, or the web links for the recording, and they will send their questions, if any, later on. So they will have that opportunity to further interact with you. If there are any questions, you will be receiving some communication from them.
Okay, thanks very much. I think it's only left to me again to thank everyone who participated. I think the silent media partners who were with us, we want to thank them. No doubt they will be reviewing the recording of the press launch, and of course preparing their stories. And as Nadia indicated, if they have any further questions, they can contact us individually. Again, thank you, Leslie. Thank you, Matthias. Richard Matthias, thank you, Javanik. Thank you, Kanita. Thank you, Snalia. Thank you, Giles. And let's look forward to a very successful activity next week, the Open Campus Conference, and thereafter the other parts of the Knowledge Fair for 2020-2021, which would be the In Search of Beacons of Change, our sort of virtual information sharing, and of course, the sweet end to it, the tasting in December 2021. Thank you very much, everybody, and have a good day.